Underneath this blue trash bag is a fully painted helicopter, but I had to do a lot to get it there. My name's Callie, I'm the okayest engineer. Let's get into it. So I was getting ready to pull a cowling off the helicopter so that I could do the finishing touches on all the bodywork and get this thing ready for paint. But then I realized I should probably be making a bracket for where this intake scoop meets the mast of the helicopter to prevent it from flexing in flight. And there's probably no better time than the present to add that bracket. To get this bracket designed and fabricated, I'm going to be using what I've learned previously in this channel to get that done. So we will be 3D scanning the helicopter to get the geometry we needed, throw that into CAD and fab up a bracket. And then from there, we're going to 3D print a mold on my 3D printer, and we will lay up a carbon fiber part in that mold. Before we start scanning, I'm pretty confident from the mistakes I've made in the past that the scanner isn't going to like the really shiny kind of surface of this carbon fiber cowling. So for that, I'm going to just use some painter's tape to mask off this whole surface. That should dull everything up. And then we'll just use the geometry recognition in the software to basically scan this thing whole out without using any trackers. To get this thing scanned in, I'm going to be using my Einstar 3D scanner, and we're going to use the two-step method that I learned from the seat, where I will initially take a scan with the cowling on the helicopter the way it is now. Then I'll pull the cowling off and I will end up scanning the rest of the geometry in the helicopter that is in the shadow of the cowling. That's the actual part that I'm interested in to make that bracket. I imported the scan into my favorite CAD software, Onshape, and it came in as 3 separate surfaces. As far as CAD's concerned, this STL surface is basically useless. You can't manipulate it in any way. It's got jagged edges around the perimeter. It also didn't help that the scanner picked up the extra material at the parting line at the edge of the cowling, so we need to get rid of all of that bad geometry. I reduced this STL surface down into just the areas that I want to be part of the mold that I'm designing to create this bracket. And this is where the actual magic happens. I don't know where I've been, but Onshape created a feature called Constrained Surface, which takes a mesh file or a point cloud and actually converts it into a surface that you can actually manipulate. This is huge because now I can take these surfaces that are not connected at all and extend the edges and start to create the geometry that will eventually be the surface of the mold. With the mold surface defined, all that's left is to create a solid part that encompasses that surface, which can then be split out, and there you have it. Your molds are finished. While I'm waiting for that mold to print, I figured it was a good time to come down here and do a little bit more finishing work on the body. I've gone around and put some blue masking tape on pretty much any blemish that I could find. That could be, I don't know, a pinhole or a spot that I missed sanding completely or a spot that needs more filler. And basically, I'm going to come back and mix up some epoxy fairing compound and do some really thin work to just smoothen everything out and make sure it's ready for primer. While I have that fairing compound mixed up, I'm also going to work on the dash. Now, we haven't actually talked about this because I found out about it just recently. The molds actually warped pretty bad when they were printing, and most of that warping happens in the bottom inch or so of the actual mold. That ended up creating a high spot in the mold, which in turn created a low spot on the face of this dash. So as a reminder, this will get inlaid with a flat piece of carbon fiber. And so in order to make sure that that flat piece of carbon mates up perfectly with this piece of fiberglass, this face also needs to be perfectly flat. But it really only needs to be perfectly flat around the edge because obviously the center will be replaced with carbon. So to fix this problem, I'm going to be using some of that epoxy fairing compound. I'm going to be using this 14-inch, it's a drywall putty, I don't know, knife. And I'm going to basically lay in the fairing compound with this knife to get me a really nice flat surface, and then I'll follow that up with a piece of sandpaper taped to a piece of wood that's nice and straight, and then we'll sand it back down flat. It'll probably take 2 or 3 times. We'll get there in small steps, but that is the plan. The bulk of the work of getting this face flat is finished. It's plenty good for now. Let's get back to that carbon fiber bracket. The layup for these 2 brackets should be very simple and straightforward. I have a completely dedicated video on how I do all this, so if you are interested, please go check that out. We're just going to skim over most of this. The mold was printed in PLA. It was printed with no bottom so that this mold doesn't trap any air. All the air can escape. I'm going to be using PVA as a mold release, just as some insurance. It's probably not needed, but we're going to use it anyways. To release the part from the bottom of the mold, we are going to use peel ply. This does 2 things for me. I want that peel ply surface on the actual part for the mating faces between this flange and the fuselage, and that happens to be on the mold surface, and so we'll use that peel ply for that reason. On top of the peel ply, I'm using scrap 6K 2x2 carbon fiber. We'll just cut that into some simple rectangles and throw that into the mold. 4 layers of those in each side should be plenty for this bracket. I'll be using fiberglass 2001 series epoxy resin. Are you kidding me? This stuff is super cool. It cures at room temperature, and then once you have a full cure, it's actually good to like 200 F, so you don't have to post-cure anything, and it's still good for higher temperature application. So super cool there. So on top of that, we'll go another layer of peel ply. We'll go ahead and put in some breather. I will cover the part with some extra vacuum bag just to prevent the resin from sucking out into the breather. And then from there, we'll envelope bag the entire thing. I'll use my adjustable vacuum with the set point at 15 inches of mercury, and then we'll let that sit overnight. Every time. Fiberglass is the reason I get to do all these cool projects. All the materials I use will be linked in the description below. Huge shout out and thank you to Fiberglass for making this possible. All right, the parts are out of the mold, and I've even taken a little bit of time to trim them up to basically a rough fit. And let me just say, it blows my mind that you can basically take a scan of a helicopter, design a part in CAD, free software, Onshape, by the way, you should sponsor me even though you're not, design a mold, print a mold, do a layup, and in basically 24 hours or a day and a half, you can have a completely custom carbon fiber part in your hands. Like, you guys have seen me struggle for weeks to make carbon parts. Granted, this is simple, but we could scale this up into something more. It's just freaking awesome. And it fits on the helicopter and to the contour of the helicopter, like, perfectly. I'd be even willing to bet that it's just as good as if I pulled the part directly off the helicopter. I mean, just insane. It's super cool. What we can do with the technology these days is mind-blowing. And mind you, that's with a $500 scanner and a $500 printer. That's $1,000, which granted is not $0, but holy crap. I mean, if you tried to do this 10 years ago, it'd be 10 times that. Just so cool. It turned literally an afterthought, which is what this was, into something that doesn't look like an afterthought. Anyways, end rant or whatever that is. I'm just so shocked and stoked with how well this turned out. I got both these lined out. I do need to grind down, similar to everywhere else, all of the gel coat off so that we can get a really good bond. I'm going to go ahead and throw this back on, get the fairing back on, and I'm going to put some holes in there where the quarter turns will eventually be. Same down like this side. I'll go ahead and cleco that in, and then we'll use the cowling basically to locate and fixture and hold this while we glue it in with some of that MMA. It is worth noting that the molds are trash. I spent basically zero effort trying to make sure that these parts would release out of them easily. I put one layer of PVA in, and that was it. And I did have to destroy the molds. But had I put any more effort into this, like putting down, I don't know, some clear coat or some better release, I would have spent more time prepping the mold than it took for me to destroy these molds and get these parts out. So for me, it is a perfect solution to destroy the molds. I mean, this is literally $5 in material. I will never, ever make another one-off part ever again. This is for my helicopter and my helicopter only. So for those reasons, this is a perfect solution for me and why I didn't put literally any more effort into it. It is awesome. All right, this is what I've been working up to. I need to glue 3 main pieces together with structural adhesive. The first being the foot pedal bracket. This one was a little different in prepping it. I did not want to burn through the fiberglass considering there's only a couple layers there, and this is the non-mold side, so it's rather rough and the fibers are right there. So to prep that surface, I just used a maroon Scotch-Brite. That should be good enough. It got rid of the gloss and it should be ready to go. For the dash, similar story to everything else, I removed all of the gel coat. I took everything down to raw fiberglass, and that should be also good to go. The brackets, the carbon brackets that we just made, the side of the helicopter, you can see I removed the gel coat there. We're down to raw fiberglass. Everything has been prepped with first blowing off with compressed air. Then we followed that up with some acetone, and all the surfaces should be fully ready. I went ahead and put blue masking tape anywhere that I don't want that adhesive and I don't want things sticking together, particularly on this cowling, since I'm using the cowling as the fixture to hold the part. So there is blue tape on the mating surface between the bracket and the cowling, and then there's also blue masking tape that wraps around this edge of the cowling, so then when we cleco these both together, hopefully no glue will seep in, and if it does, then we'll be able to remove the tape and get all of this apart. The foot pedal bracket is probably going to be the easiest because it is self-locating, so I'll get enough structural adhesive between the two surfaces to make sure that it gets a good bond, and this just kind of press it into place and then let it sit. The dash is similar. It is also self-locating, but I am going to use 3 clamps just to make sure it's all held together tightly. The gaps on this one are significantly bigger than everywhere else, so I'll be extra generous in that MMA and make sure that it squeezes out in all of the locations. And then the final and hardest one are these 2 brackets for the cowling. I'm going to get the cowling installed back onto the back of the helicopter. That will get everything in place. I'll then put the MMA on the mating face between the bracket and the mast. We'll go ahead and squeeze that into place, and while we're holding it there, we'll add those clecos into the cowling, and that should hold everything while it all cures. Well, that all basically went exactly to plan. The dash is now one piece. It's installed into the helicopter. Just temporarily, though, I do have a whole lot of body work I need to do to make this thing look pretty, so that is for another day. The foot pedal bracket, that is in there and in there forever. It is never coming out. It's nice and solid. And then the 2 brackets that'll hold the cowling, those are also, I mean, on there real good. You can lift the whole helicopter by either one or both of those brackets. So all that's left to do, I need to pull the boom off for the last time. We will set up something up here so I can hang the entire fuselage from, so that I have access to all the sides. We'll do one last final prep for primer, and we'll get this thing all one color. Now, for anyone worried about the structural integrity of this prototype bracket that I made, made the shift this very technical engineering accepted test where I took two of the scrap pieces from that bracket, glued them together with the MMA, put a U-bolt through where it's only captured on the bottom. We're not sandwiching it or anything. They're wallowed out holes. I mean, this is worst case scenario, and it's also trying to pull this 90-degree bracket back straight into its normal position, which is just a horrible load path. And it can easily hold all of my weight without an issue. So this is way more loading than that bracket will ever see, and I'm not worried about it. I washed the entire helicopter inside and out with Dawn dish soap and a Scotch-Brite pad. Thankfully, the basement has a low spot and a drain in here. I then let it dry for a couple of days and then got both parts into the paint booth as they are now. It is very tight in here and I don't really love it. So I'm going to approach this kind of in a unique way, I think. I have two colors. I have a white primer and a gray primer. The white primer I'm going to be using on the entire exterior of the helicopter, and the gray primer will go on the inside. I'm going to move the fuselage out of here so I have more room to spray the boom. So I'll spray the boom with white primer, and then I'll actually lift it up. It's on strings right now. I'll lift it up out of the way, get the fuselage back in here and hanging, and then spray the rest of the fuselage. The plan is to spray at least 2 coats. I'll probably do them 4 to 6 hours apart. So we'll get the first one laid down in here, let it sit for a handful of hours, then come back and do one more nice coat. We'll then let all of that kind of dry pretty permanently, and I'll come back and actually do the gray on the interior once I can actually start putting some masking tape down to protect the outside. All right, so the white exterior coat is finished and mostly cured. I need to get like an Insta360 Go or something I can throw on my hat and give you guys a better POV when I'm working on this kind of stuff, because basically the lessons learned. The first layer, or first, I guess, pass, I did not reduce the primer at all, and it was really thick. I used a 2mm nozzle on the spray gun, and it just struggled to come out. It took a really long time. I had to narrow the fan and basically just try and just move the material. So it didn't work very well. The second pass, after I let the first kind of layer cure down to attack, I reduced it down 10%. That made a world of difference. It laid down a lot more smooth, a lot more glassy, gave me a really, really nice finish, and it should be better to sand going forward. So I think going forward, I would probably reduce it if I'm trying to build with maybe 5%. And then the final coat, yeah, that 10% made it look really, really pretty. It's not perfect. I do have some runs on the tail boom, which, I mean, it's not a big deal. There's some pinholes that I found that I should have been less lazy and covered them. I was hopeful that this primer would just fill it in, and that is not the case. So we will sand all this down. It will all get better. I'm really not worried about the surface finish here because, once again, it is just a primer, and this will be the base for the top coat, color, and then clear. And with that, I realized I didn't actually explain what I was doing. So this epoxy primer, this is getting laid on now. It's going to shrink over the course of the next couple of months. And so I put it on there thick, and I'm just going to let it cure. We're going to continue to build the helicopter as that cured, and then once I'm actually ready for paint, that's when I'll do the final block sanding and then prep for the base coat. The reason I chose white on the outside is because I wanted a light base coat, because I am going to put probably a white and some lighter blue colors onto this helicopter. So one of my least favorite things about the helicopter, which this sounds so petty and it's really not a big deal, is the fact that the interior is basically raw fiberglass and is the non-mold surface of the part. And so you get this just rough texture, and you get seams where the different fabrics laid in together, and it's just not that pretty. And so my attempt here with this high build primer was to get rid of, I don't know, a majority of that texture, which I was not very successful in doing. And I'm at a crossroads. I don't feel like just laying on a whole bunch more high build primer and weight is really worth the added, I don't know, improvement of the aesthetic. Um, and so, I don't know, I'm kind of at a standstill. I think at least this effort is over. I'm not going to add any more. And if I do anything in the future, I don't know, I might pivot and do something completely different. Curious to hear your thoughts on, yeah, what the best way is to finish this, or if I should just leave it alone. I think most of the people who end up doing these leave them alone, or I've seen a couple that actually have done full like upholstered interior, which I don't know. That seems like a stretch as well. But anyways, I'm gonna get this thing unmasked. I'm curious to see how it all looks and get my eyes on this thing. I had to pull the helicopter out into the bigger portion of my basement so I could actually get a really good look at it. And I'm struggling with how to even express my feelings right now. I've had a vision for how this helicopter was going to look for over a year now, and it's been at least that long in the making, and it's finally to a point where I actually feel that the real life thing in front of me actually looks like the vision that I had imagined. And it feels, frankly, awesome. I am stoked with how this has turned out, even though it is just the primer. It's just kind of a glimpse into what and how good this will look in the future. I'm still not totally sold on the paint job yet. I don't fully know how this thing is going to look, and I'm sure that will come in the next few months. I had a real takeoff in a spectacular fashion this month, and it's brought over 800,000 views and over 1,000 new subscribers. So welcome, thank you for joining, and I hope you like the ride. I'm also going down to the Composite FX fly-in this weekend in Florida before Sun and Fun. If you happen to be down there early, definitely stop by. It's going to be a great time. And it just so happens, a lot of you guys know I'm a Cletus fan. I figured out the Freedom 500 was Friday, so I took off early and I'm taking my nephews to go see the Freedom 500 the Friday before the fly-in, so I'm stoked about that. All of those videos will be coming out after all of this, so I'm pretty excited to make that content. I am picking up the rest of my kit I have confirmed while I'm down there, so we are basically let loose to finish this thing as fast as I can possibly make that happen. Thanks for following along. Subscribe if you want to see this thing fly, and if you're interested in similar content, Ben Dixie has built and is test flying a coaxial helicopter. You should definitely go check out his channel. As always, go build something cool, never stop learning, and we'll see you on the next one.